Broadcasting live from the Capital OTB studios, this is Racing Across America with Seth Merrow.
We'd like to thank Gulfstream Park for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Gulfstream Park's championship meet features great racing now through Florida Derby weekend at the end of March. Good morning and welcome to Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. Happy to have you on board. Back in the studio after the road trip last week, a really nice road trip down to the Fountain of Youth. Nice weekend of some live programming at Gulfstream. Hope everybody enjoyed that. Certainly we did with the nice weather, and it worked out great on Saturday. Saturday they were predicting some storms, and a couple of times it got threatening during the afternoon, but there was a little sprinkle early that didn't affect anything. But other than that, it wound up to be a great day, weather-wise and racing. But now back up in upstate New York, and this morning we're going to take a look at the other coast of Florida because it's Tampa Bay Derby Day. Great stakes card underneath as well. A little bit later on, Carothers will join us. We taped her yesterday. You'll see her live from Gulfstream or live from Tampa all afternoon in the paddock. So we got some of her thoughts. But I saw on the podcast, the HHH Racing podcast, Howard Kravets and company also took a look at some of the stakes at Tampa. So I thought we'd pick his brain a little bit. Howard Kravets joins us now. Good morning.
Good morning, Seth. How you doing today?
Very good, and happy to have you on board to talk a little bit of Tampa action. As I say, since you guys concentrated on it in the Picks and Ponies podcast this week. And why don't we kick right off? And I always like to let you tout the podcast a little bit. So for folks who maybe aren't familiar, talk a little bit about the podcast and when they can find the various formats of it.
Yeah, it's a very exciting time of year, of course, with Kentucky Derby preps in full force. The 50.1s have already started. My boy Paladin looks like he's going to be in the Derby, so that's exciting. HHH Racing Podcast, we're going in 5+ years now, Seth. Hard to believe. Over 1 million views on YouTube. You can find us. We have live shows on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday covering various tracks throughout the country. And then very popular recently, in the last month or two, we've been doing live shows. Not every Saturday. We're taking the Saturday off, but we do live shows on Saturdays called Weekend Warriors, where we not only go through the races, but of course we handicap in real time, and you can talk about the tote forward in real time. And, you know, it's a very exciting show. It's in the afternoon. Sometimes we focus on Twin Spires tournaments as we're sponsored by Twin Spires. They have fantastic contests going on as well. And of course we have our Power Pick tip sheet. So very proud of the HHH Racing Podcast. It just continues to grow. And I've got a tremendous staff behind me that does yeoman's work.
Also let you tout a little bit the power picks because those get sent out every week, and I know you guys do a great job putting together that information, looking at some of the bigger races every weekend.
Right. So we have something called our Power Pick tip sheet. Very inexpensive, very profitable, less than $5 per Saturday. They come out on Saturday mid-morning. And we have ABC grid, spot plays, price plays, and we do a lot of ticket construction conversation also. And then coming up soon, Seth, I might add, we're going to have track-specific power picks. In other words, we have spring Keeneland meets power picks. We have some packages coming up for the Derby, Saratoga power picks. So I have some great writers as well, and we articulate our opinions, I think, very nicely.
I will say, I saw one of the HHH podcast team down at Gulfstream last weekend. I'm walking along the apron. Kyle walked by, Kyle Roscoe.
Yeah.
And so said hello and chatted with him for a little bit, but it was fun to see part of the team down there at Gulfstream last weekend.
Yeah, he mentioned he saw you. That's great. We appreciate that, Seth. I know you guys had a great conversation. Kyle now lives down there. He's
nice.
Hails from Chicago originally, lived in Wisconsin for a while. Now he's permanently moved down to South Florida. So if you're down at Gulfstream, you'll probably see Kyle down there in the future.
Good for him. Lucky man. I got a couple extra days in, and I enjoyed that. But to be down there this time of year, as I say, good for him. All right, let's get into it. Before we get to Tampa, again, looking at the podcast slate, I saw you put up your current Derby top 10, and I wanted to go back and get some thoughts on last weekend a little bit. Again, we were down at the Fountain of Youth. And it was a nice performance from both Commandment and Chief Wallaby. Both put in good performances, a 101 buyer for Commandment, a 100 for Chief Wallaby. And I had Mike McAdam on yesterday talking, 3-year-olds, and he's a voter in the NTRA poll. NTRA voters clearly were appreciative of the performances last week, as Commandment was very high up the list. On top of your list, I know you've liked Paladin right along. Paladin's in the second spot, but Chief Wallaby in the third spot. Clearly, you were impressed, as was I, with the performances in the Fountain of Youth last weekend.
Yeah, the Fountain of Youth, Seth, I think clearly has been the best prep so far. It was, they've got a 101 and 100 buyers, and it was visually impressive. They were several clear of third place. And, even though I had a very large, for me, win bet on Chief Wallaby, so I was disappointed by that. He ran absolutely huge. I mean, he was also wide. We don't have to get into details of the race, but he was wide a few spots while Commandment saved ground, most of the way. So I thought Chief Wallaby actually ran a little better. So I have Commandment on top in the top 10 because the bottom line is he beat Chief Wallaby, number one. And number two, he has more foundation right now than Chief Wallaby. It's a big ask for Chief Wallaby to win the Derby this year. I think he's capable of doing it, but Commandment has a few more races under his belt. And I really like the gallop out. I'm a big gallop out guy. And I let him run, past the wire. I'm talking about Commandment, of course. And what a ride by Irad. Yeah. I mean, absolutely picture perfect ride. Even, came out a little bit into Chief Wallaby in the stretch. I think there would have been an inquiry if Chief Wallaby came in, but he didn't. So I think, to me, Commandment, Paladin, and Chief Wallaby have sort of separated themselves a little bit right now. Now, I know people are going to, I got a little poo-poo thrown in my face with, what about Nearly? I like Nearly, Seth. I'm not 100% convinced he's going to want 10 panels, and I want to see him do it against better competition. Because when he won the Holy Bull, I didn't think that was a very good field. So anyway, I think those four have clearly established themselves in the top right now.
And I was also interested last weekend, the Arkansas Derby. It was a ding-dong battle down the stretch, Class President and Silent Tactic. I was interested when I looked at your top 10. You have Silent Tactic sitting at 10, but you did not use Class President. And so I was curious to your thoughts coming out of the Rebel last weekend at Oaklawn.
Yeah, I thought Class President ran much better than I thought. And hats off to one of our co-hosts on Pacific Horse Players show, Jackson Muniz, who tipped out Class President, had an all-in win bet in the Twin Spires contest to get him a $5,000 seat when Class President won. I didn't like him nearly as much. He ran great. Silent Tactic, I think, needs to be further back and make one run. He feels like very much a key in third or fourth in your super kind of horse right now for the Derby. I don't know if he's good enough to win. But Class President was really good. I have nothing to knock on him. He's tactical. It's Fletcher. It was a great ride. So I just, there's only so many horses you can put in your top 10.
Yeah.
But I like Class President. I'm not sure he's a Kentucky Derby win candidate at this point for me.
And what was your takeaway from the Gotham? I think going in, a lot of folks were kind of like, I don't know what we're going to get out of the Gotham. But Iron Honor ran well. It's Chad Brown and, company. And obviously on the connections, you have to pay attention a little bit. But what was your takeaway, as I say, from Iron Honor and the Gotham?
I would say the race was more workmanlike, right? I mean, Crown the Buckeye, the Ohio bred really stretched Iron Honor, but it was only Iron Honor's second lifetime start. I know they're going to the Wood, and, I'm sure you've talked about it already, Seth, but I'm not fully convinced Iron Honor also wants 10 furlongs, but I think it's a great spot for him to go to the Wood. Chad will see how he does, and if he gets the distance, I'm sure he'll go to the Derby, but the way Chad and Todd are running right now with their entourage, I don't think Iron Honor is even in the top two, as we're going to talk about one of Chad's talented runners today at Tampa.
Yeah, and again, looking forward to this race at Tampa, and we'll get into it now. Tampa Bay Derby. This is a nice field. I'm very intrigued to see what Further Ado does on the comeback. We had talked earlier this year, very early in the year, about Further Ado, who hadn't hit the work tab for a while. And it was like I was talking with Jeremy Plonk, and then the next week I had Brad Cox on. And he said, yeah, there was a little bit of a hiccup. We didn't get to Florida as soon as we would like to from Kentucky at the end of the 2-year-old season. So it took us a while to get to the work tab. But it was either the day before I had Brad on or the day after Further Ado started to work. And you can see a nice steady string of workouts at Payson for Further Ado. Really excited to see what he does in here. Power Shift coming out of that nice maiden race at Tampa. Going to be interesting to see what he does because he has the potential to further flatter Emerging Market, who won that race, but Power Shift ran great in there also for Pletcher and Rapoli. But I think you and I are kind of on the same page. I'm going to put Canaletto on top. I was very impressed with that debut victory. There's obviously the breeding there that makes Canaletto very interesting. So Canaletto, to me, again, coming out of the debut victory at Gulfstream, has, it's an ask to move into a stakes company in the second career start, but it is Chad Brown and company. I'm going in that direction. Your thoughts in the Tampa Bay Derby?
When trainers like Chad Brown and Todd Pletcher and, Bill Mott put maiden winners in big-time stake races as their second start, you got to pay attention. I mean, Canaletto was so impressive, I thought, his debut. Now, the field has come back a little bit. Seth. Autobahn finished third to come back and win with a 76. Two others that finished towards the back of the pack improved their buyer, but let's face it, that was not a great maiden field, but the way he did it, Seth, was just super impressive. This is my top pick. It's a soft pick. I'm going 9-6-5 for the record in this race. He's got to get 2 turns. I mean, there's questions to answer here, right? But I think Canaletto is super talented. And when similar to Chief Wallaby. From what I understand, Further Ado is working very well. It's interesting that Irad is here on this horse, and you probably have talked about it already throughout the week, instead of Power Shift. I'd love to hear your opinion on that. I don't try to get not too caught up in the jockey musical chairs, but he did ride Power Shift for Rapoli and Pletcher in his debut and stays with Brad Cox on Further Ado. So to me, that's a feather, obviously, in Further Ado's cap. However, Power Shift gets Johnny Velasquez, so nothing wrong there. I like Power Shift as well. It's a tough ask here, as it is for Canaletto. My gut just tells me maybe Canaletto is slightly more talented than Power Shift. I think either one of those three can win. I don't see anyone else winning this race. I suppose Talkin has a shot there from the inside for Gargan off the layoff. I'm not a big the Puma guy. I know a lot of people thought he had a sneaky bad trip, and I don't disagree. The number 8 for Delgado, but that field wasn't as good. This is a much better field, and I just don't like the Puma quite as much. So I'm going 9-6-5. It's sort of chalking out here.
Yeah, I'm right to have it exactly the same, 9-6-5. And the horse I thought was interesting was Talkin, the 2 horse at maybe a little bit of a price that people are going to fool around a little bit. And looking, on Talkin's resume, 2 back to Champagne, Napoleon Solo was the nice winner in the Champagne. What were your thoughts on that one? I used Napoleon Solo on top tepidly. I said, it's a big ask. And I had interviewed Chad Summers last weekend down at Gulfstream, and he admitted, we're up against it with the, off a layoff like that and whatnot. Top of the stretch, I thought Napoleon Solo was in a good spot, but down the stretch, but it was the first start back off a long layoff.
Not only that, he didn't break. I mean, when he didn't break well, I knew he was in a lot of trouble. But he did range up a little bit, and I thought he ran okay. I was not a big fan of him coming into the race. I just didn't like the long layoff. But he's very talented. He's also got a very high knee action. I wonder if at some point he'll be a turf horse. Maybe he's just so talented that they'll keep him on dirt. But, if he stays in Florida for the Florida Derby, that's going to be another tough race, you would think. We'll see where everyone goes. In terms of Commandment Chief Wallaby, Nearly. There's some nice horses down there in South Florida this spring.
All right, let's take a look at some of the other stakes action on the card today at Tampa. Again, really nice card down there supporting the Tampa Bay Derby. And the Florida Oaks, these are, as the name would indicate, 3-year-old fillies on the grass here. A couple $100,000 up for grabs. I'm interested to see your take. I talked with Ren Carothers, as I say, we taped that yesterday. She went with Coca Motion. I took a very strong look at that one because I remember watching that maiden breaker, and it was just phenomenal, and saying the next day, don't overlook this little maiden race at Tampa because Coca Motion looked good. But I eventually didn't pull the trigger there. But I found one that I thought was interesting at a price. I used Alone Time. We're going to take a look at the win over at the fairgrounds for Cherie DeVoe. And so Alone Time, very interesting to me at a decent price on the morning line. Boss Candy at a big price for Mark Cassie, also in my mix. On the outside, the number 11. Time to Dream, obviously, is going to take plenty of action for Chad and Irad. Have no arguments there as well. But as I say, interested to hear your thoughts on the Florida Oaks.
Well, you just named several horses, and my top pick that I love was not even mentioned. That's how wide open this race is. Let me just start with Time to Dream very quickly. This Time to Dream is our co-host Paul Halloran's play of the day. He loves Time to Dream. She faced really good horses. Obviously, she was in the Breeders' Cup. But if you recall last year, Seth, the Philly and the field Philly turf division was pretty weak last year. I think most people would agree with that. So although she has some, good numbers, she's 2 out of 4, etc. She's been off for a while here. She can improve. I'm not fully convinced that Time Dream is going to get the job done. The horse I'm really interested, and I mean very interested, which means win bet, using tries underneath, etc., is the number 5, Dandona for Staffy. This is a $1 million Tis the Law filly. And she ran last summer in a slow race, but won. Her race on February 7th, you have to watch. It was an allowance race. And in the stretch, she was super impressive. Once she got her act together and her mind on racing, she came flying for third, a monster gallop out. That was her first start since August. She's got 2 work stints. She's got Flavian. She's 6-1. She was cross-honored, Seth, in a Gulfstream race today, and she was on the AE list. She goes here at Tampa instead. The number 5, Dandona, with the right trip and setup at 6-1 morning line, I would say probably more like 9-2 or 5-1 in the race, is absolutely fascinating to me. Cost, again, over $1 million for Staffy.
Yeah, and as you noted, and as I kind of alluded to, I think this is a very wide open race where maybe you can play around a little bit. So looking forward to that one, certainly. And I will note, you on your picks and ponies, you took a look at the late pick 5, which includes these stakes we're looking at. The 8th race is a non-stake in the mix, but there's plenty of stakes action in that late pick 5. And with a race like this in the mix, it's going to be a lot of fun. All right. Also, 9th race this afternoon is the Hillsborough. Again, back on the grass in that one. Here we're going to take a look at Whiskey Decision. I think that's a horse you like. I like the other. I have Whiskey Decision right underneath. I'm looking for a Chad Zakda. I put Child of the Moon on top. Ran second last time in the comeback after a long layoff. Ran second behind Sweet Rebecca, who was a Brendan Walsh runner, and Brendan Walsh has just been red hot. So I use Child of the Moon, but we're watching a replay here going back to the Athenia. 2 starts back for Whiskey Decision. That one will get it done here. Follow-up was the Pegasus Filly and Mare Turf. Ran a close-up 4th in that one. But talk a little bit about your thoughts in the Hillsborough.
Yeah, she won by edict and did an awesome check who came back to win in that Athena. She was good. She was just fine. I thought she had. I like Whiskey Decision quite a bit here, and then she's 2-1. Nothing special. Not telling anyone things they do not know already. But I thought in the Pegasus Filly Mare Invitational, I thought she had a few spots of trouble. She was pulling early and a little ranked. Then she was in between horses. Then she had to wait a little bit in the stretch and followed Destino d'Oro, who won. But Whiskey Decision, I thought, had more in the tank. I think the mile and 8th works great. It's Flavian. I just think if she gets the trip, I think she's the best horse in the year. Child of the Moon is interesting. I'm going to use her underneath for sure. She's already 6 though, so I'm not sure about her upside. But if she wins to win shock me, it's the other Chad, obviously. So Destino d'Oro can win. I just want to see her again. I think Proctor Street is interesting, but I'm going to be pretty heavy here on Whiskey Decision. And I might single her in the pick 5 and just hope that I can get through the race.
Okay. Very good. Flavian Proud on board for Chad Brown. So makes sense there, certainly. And that pick 5 sequence will start out, as I say, the 8th is a non-stakes race, but the sequence starts out with race number 7, which is the Columbia. 3-year-olds on the turf. I love this subdivision. I say it all the time on the show. You get great stakes at almost every venue throughout the year. These 3-year-olds on the turf, and always a lot of fun. I like Alpe Land for Mark Cassie. I'm going to use that one. A nice stakes win in the Dania Beach to kind of kick off the 3-year-old season for that one, followed up with a third in the Kitten's Joy, but I think is set up nicely today. Naughty Nix is interesting to me, Proton. And then bottom of my mix, I used Congressional. We're going to take a look at the debut victory. Nice gutsy win by a nose over at Gulfstream Park for Miguel Clement. Flavian Prat jumps on board today, and looking at your picks on the podcast, it looks like you'll tilt towards this one in the second start of the career. Talk about your thoughts in the Columbia.
Miguel Clement, how about this? 37% at Tampa Bay. I mean, he's such a good trainer anyway. He knows exactly who to send to Tampa. His stride, I don't know what you felt, but just the visual here is really impressive. His stride is huge. It took him a little while to get going, but Gulfstream, as you know, is pretty tight turn, and the stretch is not very long. And I thought the field that he beat was pretty good. I expect a pretty big improvement from him today, and he already got a 75 buyer. Again, I think we have a lot of Flavian today, but look, you could go with worse jockeys in your top pick.
Yeah.
Correct. So, if Flavian goes to Tampa instead of riding Brandt at Santa Anita, I think that is very telltale to me, with Brandt as well out west. So the fact that he's here, he's got a lot of live mounts. Congressional is tactical. Sure, he doesn't have the figs and the resume that Alpeland does, maybe some of the others, even like Proton, who's coming out of stake races his 2-year-old year on the West Coast. But I think Congressional's upside is tremendous. Maybe this is too much too soon, but I'm curious to hear what you thought of his debut.
I thought it was impressive as well. Again, I put him in my mix. Now, number-wise, I think he probably has to step forward a little bit, but in the second start of the career, that is not out of the question. And like you, I noted that Miguel Clement has been very successful this season, moving over to Tampa. And like you, I noted Flavian Prat on board is maybe saying something as well. So I think he's absolutely live in here, no question about it. I just went with a little more experience in this situation, but it wouldn't shock me at all to see Congressional get it done.
I would not take too low a price on Congressional. And for the your wonderful fans and bettors out there, the number 8, the Beautiful War, is scratched from the race, so it's down to a field of 8, I believe.
Okay, very good. I'm just looking as well.
I wouldn't forget about my boy Junior, who Junior Alvarado is just fantastic. He can win on Naughty Nick, but Naughty Nick doesn't. He's improving slightly, but he doesn't do much for me. He can win, but I think there's some others that are a little more talented here.
Yeah, I was looking at him, as I say, I put him right underneath. I was looking at him at 6-1 on the morning line. I wouldn't want to go a whole lot shorter than that. I think he's got to offer a little bit of value, but I think he with a value, he's interesting. Yeah. Again, Proton, you mentioned him, Graham Motion. Interesting that they wound the year up, Graham Motion training, a couple of starts out at Del Mar. So that was a little bit intriguing as well, but makes the 3-year-old seasonal debut. So he's interesting. I think overall it's a very, very intriguing day. It's the highlight. It should be the highlight of Tampa. Have you been to Tampa? Tampa's one of my favorite tracks. I probably haven't been there in 10 years. And when I was down at Gulfstream this past weekend, I spent a couple extra days, and I really debated driving up on Sunday, but it's like 4 hours one way, 4 hours the other. So I eventually went and sat on the beach, to be honest. But I got to get back there. I really like Tampa. In the wintertime, Tampa and Oaklawn are my 2 favorite tracks almost, I can say, all year long. But in the wintertime, I certainly focus on both of them.
It's actually 2 of the tracks in the country that I've not been to that I have sort of on my bucket list right now. So our good friend Matt Miller just went to Oaklawn for the first time a few weeks ago to visit our good friend Marshall Graham.
Yeah.
But I have not had a chance to go to Tampa either. I hear it's a really nice track. They treat the fans well. It's sort of an old school kind of environment. So I'll have to make my way down to there. I am going to the fairgrounds the first time, by the way, in a few weeks, courtesy of Twin Spires. I'll talk about that later on the podcast. So I'm excited for my first trip to New Orleans and Bourbon Street in about 3 weeks here.
Yeah, I will highly tout Fairgrounds as well. I made it years and years ago. I made it on my way to Florida, where this is going back a ways, where I spent some time at Tampa on the trip. I have a sister who lives in Arkansas, Northwest Arkansas. Visited her, and then a trip to Oaklawn, and again, highly tout that track as well, and spent a couple days down at the fairgrounds and highly tout that. And I will say, Bourbon Street was kind of funny. I don't know. I parked a few blocks away, never having been there before, and I'm kind of walking along, and there's just dark streets as I'm going block by block. The 3 or 4 blocks. I'm thinking this doesn't seem that exciting, and then I turned the corner. And it's like, oh, okay, this is Bourbon Street. Yeah, it is clearly, it lives up to its reputation.
Well, for someone like me who enjoys jazz music and doesn't mind a dessert once in a while, like a nice beignet, I might stay there longer than originally planned.
I did. I said I spent a couple of days. I was only planning one day, but I had a couple of days myself. I did the po' boy and the beignet, and I did the whole thing. I highly recommend that place as well. But yeah, you definitely have to get down to Tampa. Howard, appreciate the visit. As always, again, highly tout the podcast. People can find it HHH Racing when you visit YouTube. Check out the various podcasts and the Power Picks. Give those a thumbs up as well. But again, appreciate the conversation today. Good luck this afternoon, and we'll talk again.
Thanks a lot, Seth. Good luck to everyone at Tampa Bay. Crush your best.
Love it.
At Tampa today.
Howard Kravets, HHH Racing Podcast. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, again, take Ren Carothers and some of her thoughts down at Tampa. We taped her yesterday, so we'll take a break. We'll come back with that. Stay tuned.
The championship season is on at Gulfstream Park. Great horse racing action Thursday through Sunday. Come out and enjoy the world's best horses, trainers, and jockeys as they compete over the Hallandale Beach Oval all season long. Take your experience up a notch and join us in 10 Palms Restaurant with unbeatable track views, outstanding dining, and convenient wagering options. For reservations, event schedules, tickets, and more, head to GulfstreamPark.com.
If you don't have a Capital OTB account yet, now is the time to log on and take advantage of the sign-up bonus. More details at capitalotb.com. Become a Capital OTB account member now and enjoy free past performances, wagering from any device, live streaming, racing info, contests, promotion and events, and more. So sign up now and take advantage of the new account bonus. Details at capitalotb.com.
Want to get your career in horse racing off to a fast start? Well, the University of Arizona's Racetrack Industry Program is your winning ticket. The Racetrack Industry Program has served as a springboard to some of the industry's most successful individuals, with a proven track record of job placement right out of college. If you want to earn a degree in the exciting horse racing industry, the Racetrack Industry Program can put you in the winner's circle.
Big day down in Tampa on Saturday, Tampa Bay Derby, the highlight of the Tampa meet. Racetrack I love. I always say one of my favorite tracks. That one in Oaklawn in the wintertime. Love to play both of those tracks, find a lot of value. And again, the highlight of the meet, Tampa Bay Derby Day on Saturday. Who better to talk about it than the paddock commentator down there, the pre-race handicapper, Ren Carothers. Ren, good morning.
Good morning to you. How are you doing, Seth?
I'm doing pretty well. Not as well as you will be doing on Saturday, sitting in the paddock. I'm imagining.
Hey,
the last
you should have stayed on. You went to the Fountain of Youth. I saw.
Yeah, and I stayed for a couple extra days, and I really debated driving over to Tampa on Sunday, but it was just a little. The 4 hours one way, 4 hours. It was a little too long. But I will be living vicariously through you, and I'm assuming the last few times I've seen you guys down the paddock, Matt will join you on the weekend?
Yes, he will. He'll actually be on the simulcast with me today. And then tomorrow, he's working for FanDuel, but he'll bounce a little bit when he's got a race off or two or three.
Fun to watch you guys, certainly. And also, before we get started doing a little handicapping, I was looking at your Twitter feed earlier, and I saw Full Fridays is back. You do some content for Breeders' Cup. So just fill us in. What can people expect when they tune into Full Fridays?
Well, we like to go to our farm partners. And for example, this week's features Claiborne. And we went out there and filmed with a very cute almost impossibly cute, to the point that you get a toothache because he's so sweet. Son of Curlin, and absolutely beautiful. And then he's out of a grade 1 winning millionaire that you may remember in Unbridled Mo. And she won the Apple Blossom. And so we like to find horses who have Breeders' Cup connections. In this case, obviously being a Son of Curlin, and then the dam is by Uncle Mo, and the second dam is by Unbridled. So you get all that good Breeders' Cup head cred there with the baby. And it's just nice. It's a way for us to really keep these names alive and see how these pedigrees do still breathe life into horses that write the next chapters of racing's history.
Right in your alley as a pedigree person. So full price.
Yeah.
People find it on the Breeders' Cup Twitter feed, and obviously your Twitter feed as well.
Yeah, and then we'll eventually, once we get more into the challenge series, the summertime, pick back up with the Future Stars forecasts, and that's where we interview connections of 2-year-olds you should watch as we head to the championships in the fall.
And I love 2-year-old racing. As a handicapper, I love it because you can find things that aren't necessarily on the page if you're willing to dig around a little bit and look at pedigrees and whatnot.
And that's the thing, even with the late pick 5 on tomorrow's card at Tampa, I know there were some people like, oh, there's a maiden race that ends the sequence. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm right with you.
Yeah, you have to put on your thinking cap. You have to think more dynamically. And that's what separates in terms of getting that payoff.
Yeah, as I say, I love the 2-year-old racing. 3-year-old racing, though, is what we're going to talk about with the Tampa Bay Derby. But again, looking at your Twitter feed, I see you and Matt before last weekend looked at some of the action. And again, we were down at the Fountain of Youth. Big performances from Commandment, but Chief Wallaby looked very good. And the two of you, it sounds like, we're on board class president over at Oaklawn at $19. Good call there. But that was a battle with silent tactic.
It was. And it was just so impressive because class president, I mean, he really was having to step it up, trying the distance test for the first time, but he had the pedigree for it. It's interesting that when Matt and I, because we don't handicap together, as I posted about, we don't. And we just don't like to be influenced by each other. So when we do land, not just on the same horse, but a horse at a price, then we know, okay, there's definitely something here, because there's a lot that's similar in the ways in which we approach our handicapping, but then there are certainly things that are different. So when we can come upon, again, a price horse in the same race like that, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, good call down there. This, last weekend, again, good performances that I talked on our Derby show on Friday about the NTRA poll, and Commandment got a lot of action, as did class president. So it was a weekend that played into the 3-year-old picture, obviously on the march to the Derby, but it will do so again this weekend. You have Brandt kicking off his season out in Southern California in San Felipe. And this Tampa Bay Derby is really, to me, intriguing. The comeback of Further Ado, we'll see what he can do. He won the Kentucky Jockey Club last fall, and a lot of people were high on him. Obviously, when Ted Naufy went to the sidelines, people shifted attention maybe to Further Ado, but then he had a little break in his workouts. I had talked to Brad Cox right about the time he got back on the workout trail, been working steadily at pace, and he's intriguing. But then the 2 second-time starters, Canaletto and Power Shift, are going to be very intriguing. This is a really nice bunch in the Tampa Bay Derby. I went with Canaletto on top with Further Ado in the second spot, and Power Shift. Talking is maybe a little bit interesting to me, but your thoughts on the Tampa Bay Derby?
You and I have not only the exact same 3, but the exact same 3 in the exact same order. Yeah. Well, the thing with Canaletto, and it's tough because I was saying to somebody else that when you look at these races and you've got these horses and you can make an argument for any of them on paper because it is so close, then I do revert back to the pedigree. Especially, 3-year-olds, they're 3-year-olds. Yes, we have some form for them, but they're still increasingly being asked to do more and more that they haven't yet done. And so I went back and I really analyzed the pedigrees of all the horses in the race. And of course, they're all well bred, don't get me wrong, but Canaletto is just like out of bounds. From a fun standpoint, I had posted about the fact that his cousin, because their moms are full sisters, his cousin, Whiskey Decision, is in the Hillsborough for Chad Brown and Flavian Pratt. And here he's in the Tampa Bay Derby. But of course, I think a lot of people already know that he's a half brother himself to Sandman. He's also half to She Can't Sing, who's Super Flexible Stakes winner. But the family, there's just all this grade 1 black type. You got Music Note in there. Her Dubai World Cup winning son, Mystic Guide, is in there. Group 1 winner, Musical Chimes. The 4th Dam it's in the air, for crying out loud. It's just so much consistent black type, quality class, grade 1 black type, that I just think he's going to answer the 2-turn call here. He looked so impressive in that debut win. It looked like he was just working out. You know, the interesting thing too is that, you know, I like that he broke so sharply, but then he took back and rated kindly. I think that showed a lot of mental maturity on his part for a debut.
Totally agree, and he's gonna be very interesting with the connections. Going to be interesting to see how the odds shake out as well in this group. What did you think of Power Shift? That maiden race got a lot of buzz. Emerging Market is going to be interesting. Wound up to be the winner, but they both wound up with solid buyers. Running second, Power Shift in the debut. It's Pletcher and Rapoli wound up with a 96 buyer running second.
I know, and that was such a thriller too, to be there on site. It actually happened originally when I first was going over the past performances. I was kind of leaning that way. Matt, that is where he landed, and I was thinking about it too. And then the more I thought about it, I just wonder now, going the 2 turns here after a big race like that. Obviously, it's Todd Pletcher, so I'm not worried about him not being ready for it, but I just wonder if he's going to go on the distance here in this race today. But I will say this, it was so impressive, not only, you know, to see them duke it out like that, but I thought Power Shift got pretty substantially smacked by Emerging Market off the turn for home, because he came in on him and then they exchanged blows more down the stretch. And I think, you know, the difference there, 3/4 of a length, that final time, 1:39.11 that Emerging Market has, I mean, if you wanted to go specifically to Power Shift, he was 1:39 and 24/100. The track record for a mile 40 set by a really cool horse that's one of my favorites to run at Tampa, and that's Golden One. And that had been set back in it was last in 2025, but that was 1:38 and 14/100. So for them to do that at first asking, super impressive, undoubtedly.
Totally. And thoughts on Further Ado in the comeback?
Well, Further Ado, the thing with him, and I say this to everybody, I just ignore his sprint races altogether, act like they don't even exist. He and that pedigree says 2 turns, of course. And so, well, the lengths of which he won once he finally got to go 2 turns was probably jaw-dropping. The fact that he was able to win, getting to go a distance finally, was not. The Kentucky Jockey Club, a bit more workman-like score for sure. But I was thinking about this more, and also going back to his pedigree. And to me, I almost wonder if he was so good at 2 going the route of ground despite himself. Like, this is a horse who's going to be even better now at 3 years old. He still might be one who needs one potentially, and that's why we got to hope to beat him. 9 to 5 on the morning line doesn't sound too enticing. But I will say, I mean, the Kentucky Jockey Club itself, I know Universe, the runner-up, he was a well-beaten 7th in the Smarty Jones out of there. And then he ran 4th, 7 3/4 lengths, beaten in the grade 2 with Risen Star, which Paladin won. The 3rd place runner in there, Soldier and Diplomat, 2nd in the grade 3 Southwest out of there. But I will also say the 5th place runner was Cherokee Nation. And I know he wasn't super impressive his next couple starts, but recently he did score a main special weight by 10 lengths and put up a 100 buyer figure at Santa Anita for Bob Baffert. So that was pretty cool. That's a horse coming into his own also. But yeah, I mean, you just look at Further Ado, it's one of those wine type pedigrees that gets better with maturity. And the fact that, in the family, he's got Beautiful Pleasure. That's a multimillionaire, right? And she was a champion. And also her full brother is therefore in the pedigree, and that's Mekki, who is also a multimillionaire. So you do have these pedigrees sometimes where you're like, okay, this horse was good at 2, but he should be even better now.
Did you call it a wine-like pedigree gets better with age?
Yeah.
I like that. I'm stealing that.
Absolutely, by all means. But I mean, and that's the thing,
I'll give you credit. But I think I have to use that. I like that. All right, let's shift attention. It's a great stakes card on Saturday. Again, nice weather schedule. We will live vicariously watching you from here in upstate New York. But the Florida Oaks is also on the card. Grade 3 event, couple $100,000. They'll go a mile and a 16th on the grass. I'm taking a little shot with Cherie DeVoe in Alone Time. I think it's a race where you can play around maybe a little bit. Bossy Candy at a big price is in my mix for Mark Cassie. On the outside, Legina, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, for Patrick B. and Cone, I think is interesting. Time to Dream for Pletcher and Rapoli on the morning line is 5-2. Hasn't been seen since running up the track in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Filly Turf, but obviously a player with those connections and the earlier races. Intrigued to see where you went in the Florida Oaks.
Well, I went with Coca Motion on top. I'm sorry. I was just so over the moon by that performance. It was such a cool thing to watch. I mean, I didn't even pick her and I was so excited. Cohen by Jason Worth. I mean, really cool filly. The thing with this horse, Coca Motion, that stood out to me most with that performance, beyond the fact that it was visually stunning to watch her. She looked like she was about to run out of her skin. That day we had 4 turf races, and we definitely had a pronounced, I mean, speed always is going to do well, right? Speed should always be the measure by which, a race is won, because at the end of the day, we're looking for the fastest horse, right? But on this particular day, Speed was doing exceptionally well. Again, 4 turf races, 2 of those were won by the pace setter. The other one, which was the first race of the card, the pace setter at 7-1 was able to dig in for second. The horse that got him wasn't a deep closer. He was about 5 lengths off the early pace, I believe, something like that. And he was a horse with a lot of back class seasoning. So he, I believe, went off as the favorite, that horse, Feel Like Caillou, and was able to get to him for the win. But the fact that the 7-1 shot dug in, held on, was already like, oh, wow, okay, interesting. Then we had, again, a gate to wire score, then another gate to wire score. And then here she comes deep closing. And she looked like completely untaxed by the whole thing. So I thought it was so impressive. It's really cool to see her back here today for Whit Beckman. I think the ultimate win margin was 6 1/4. So yeah, I'm going to go with her on top. Now with Time to Dream, you mentioned her. I think her only lackluster finish was there in the Breeders' Cup. And you can make the excuse for her that wide trip really took its toll on her. Especially, she looked to be making a big move as they went for the turn for home, but she was still wide the whole way, and then wide around the turn as it was. But then there was also a filly to where inside, then they were leaning on each other, knocking each other off stride. So I would just draw a line through that one, to be honest with you. And she's another one that, to me, physically and by the pedigree, looks to be one that will be so much better with time. She has like one of the most lit pedigrees you could ever hope to own. And so it's a really rich one. I won't get into all of the minutia of it all right now, but I just feel like this is a horse that should not be ignored and not be judged upon that race.
I took a serious look at Coca Motion, I have to admit, because like you, I was really impressed. I had talked about that on TV the next day, and I said, this may get overlooked, a little maiden race there, but that was a huge performance. I think Jason Worth was at the track that day, if I'm not mistaken.
He was,
yeah.
yes.
And clearly it was the right day to show up. And Whit Beckman, not normally a Tampa guy, but with limited starts this year, he's doing it. So I'm not disagreeing at all. Coca Motion was interesting. I left that one out, but I certainly might regret it. All right, let's go back one more race. 9th race on the card is the Hillsborough. Again, they're on the turf here. Grade 2 runners going for $225,000. I put Child of the Moon on top. It's Chad, it's Irad Ortiz. Whiskey Decision is Chad and Flavian Prat. I have those, that combination in the second spot. So I'm looking for the Chad Zacta there, but one more time is interesting.
7 times.
And Destino D'Oro also intriguing. What did you see in the Hillsborough?
Well, obviously, I mean, it's hard to go against Chad Brown, especially in the Hillsborough. It's a race he's won 7 times. It'd be his 8th win. He won it last year with Pratt and Saffron Moon. And again, as you mentioned, Pratt's aboard Whiskey Decision, who's actually going to be my second pick. I do have a huge soft spot, so that does weigh on my decision making, I will completely admit. But at the end of the day, I also analytically like her too, and that's the number 2 Proctor Street. Brendan Walsh has managed her very well. She's a consistent trier. She's running the money in 7 of 9 starts. He trained the mom, Proctor's Ledge, who was a really nice horse. You know, when you look at her record, I mean, just like the Perfect Sting, for example, she just missed winning that by a length. And the winner there was Grade 1 winner, Dynamic Pricing for Chad Brown. And then she won her next 2 starts. She won the Cardinal. I was there that day, and it was so impressive. She showed such bravery and heart to split horses the way she did to get up for the win at the 1 1/8 distance that day. And then she had a little time off, came back in the Pegasus Filly and Mare Turf. And the thing I noticed with that race is, you know, here she went from being kind of far off a mid pace, right? And now she's 5 lengths off of Zesty One against Grade 2 horses. And I know she said about that same distance before with a similar pace setup, but that was an optional. There's a big difference between being 5 off in a graded stakes and 5 off in you know, a lower level. And so I just felt that already took a little bit of a toll. Then she had really, as they were going into the turn, nowhere to go at first. It seemed to be a little bit like, okay, do we go here? Do we go there? She finally got up the inside. And I think that was just all too much, making that, I mean, it wasn't like she was off on a layoff, but she still was making a first start since November. And so I just think that all, again, took a toll. I think now, if they just let her relax a bit further off the pace here, then she can be one of those horses like a Whiskey Decision or a Destino d'Oro, maybe not quite as deep a closer, but maybe you want to get first run, essentially. And if she's ready to rock, then I think she can roll here for a win. I actually texted Brendan Walsh and asked how she's doing, and he said that she's doing well, you know, been training great, and that he thinks she's live, so.
And he's certainly doing well. Last weekend at Gulfstream on a little bit of a roll. So see if he can keep it rolling across state this weekend. And finally, just a quick thought. Challenger earlier on the card, 1 1/16 on the main track. You and I were talking before we went on. It looks like it goes through disco time for Brad Cox.
He'd have to, I've said this a lot now, but I'll say it again. He'd have to fall out of the gate, I think, to lose this race. I mean, and that's not any knock against the other horses in here. I mean, you look at, for example, Solo Venturi, he's going to be stepping up against Stakes Company for the first time officially, or into a stakes race, but he's been in with Stakes Company before. He's run against Chunk of Gold. He's run against Japan Street. He's run against some very nice horses. And respectably as well. Money Supply is another one. So I think he's a horse I put in second. And then Disruptor, I mean, that was a good start back. It was an optional 16, but still a very nice horse, one who should, you know, be awesome here going the 2 turns. If you're by Gun Runner, why not? I just think that Disco Time is a freak. And if it wasn't the Grade 1 Pegasus World Cup with some other speed in there and the pressure being on, then, you know, that finish, I give him the benefit of the doubt that, you know, it was a tough spot. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Fun stakes card on Saturday at Tampa, highlighted by the Tampa Bay Derby. Again, I'm envious, but we will live vicariously tuning in and watching you and rooting along on a great Saturday afternoon down at Tampa. Ren, as always, appreciate the conversation. So much, we'll talk again.
All right. Thank you so much. All the best.
Sometimes it pays to go with the flow, to check your worries at the door, to reconnect with your crew, to follow the thrills and the flavor, to roll with it and see where it takes you, to enjoy every minute to its fullest, and to dance like there's no tomorrow. You can do that here at Rivers Casino and Resort Schenectady, where the good times flow.
You like free money? Well, Capital OTB gives its players plenty of opportunities to cash in. At Capital OTB, there are so many ways for horse players to receive bonus dollars by simply participating in promotions such as our bankrolls, bounty bets, online handicapping contests, and much, much more. Plus, with Capital OTB's player rewards program, you get actual cash back. So what are you waiting for? Log on today at CapitalOTB.com or CapitalOTBBet.com and claim your free money.
Come on.
I want sales reports on my desk by Monday.
Whoops. My bad.
Love racing? RTN brings you every live simulcast on your home television, plus live video streaming and race replays on your PC and mobile devices. To order, visit rtn.tv. RTN, a breed apart.
Welcome back again. Thanks to Ren Carothers and Howard Kravets for jumping on board and taking a look at what looks like a really nice card today at Tampa. Hope everybody is kind of pulling out the PPs and making notes and whatnot, because it should be plenty of fun action. I think there is some value to be had potentially as well. As I said earlier, I debated about going up to Tampa on Sunday. Again, I was still in town after we wrapped up the live programming last week down at Gulfstream. I was still in town Sunday and Monday. And I thought, I haven't been to Tampa in a long time and go up. But it was just 4 hours one way, 4 hours the other way, 8-hour drive in the day kind of discouraged me. But I did make a trip down to Hialeah, which I'd never been to before. And that's 15 or 20 minutes down the road from Gulfstream Park. And so I thought, I've never been there. People are always saying they have visited and it still holds kind of the old grandeur feel to the place. And I thought, I'm going to go down and look. And so I bounced around and I took some still shots and some video, and we can take a look at that, and you can get a sense of this is a pretty nice facility. I have the fountain out in front that has the winners of the Flamingo on plaques all the way around. And so that was a nice, way to step into the facility. There was also a statue of Citation. There's the paddock area, which is gorgeous. And there's a statue of Citation and plaques around with his big events. Now you can see the flowers on the outside of the facility. In the facility, the inside's very nice, and it's all maintained. You can see the nice floor there, which somebody was mopping. So again, the facility not in use for racing, obviously, but they still maintain it. It was in great shape. You can see the track, however, grass growing on the track. But otherwise, it was all freshly painted, in great shape. And so you sit there and you think, boy, with the Florida racing being in flux the way it is, and this facility just sitting there. Now, it is noted in articles that have been written in the last year and a half about the situation in Florida, have brought up Hialeah. And it is noted their backstretch area, their barn area, was done away with a while ago, and apartment buildings are back there now. So that presents a little bit of an obstacle for a return of racing. But there's a lot of free land, it looks like. So I suppose you could have some barns there. They could use palmettos and ship horses in on a daily basis, perhaps. So I don't know exactly what the logistics are there, but looking around, it seems like things could work out. And there may be other logistical problems as well. But I did want to show the video for folks who maybe have never, like me, had never been to Hialeah. Really, I was amazed. It's there. It is a gorgeous facility. It is completely maintained. There's a little casino there that is ongoing, and folks were in there. But the racetrack facility itself is just sitting there. But as you saw, it's in great shape. And as I noted, when I walked in, I was kind of amazed. Somebody was mopping the floor in there. So obviously they are taking care of it on a daily basis. And you can see from the way things were clearly freshly painted and whatnot. I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised. There were also, I took a shot, but I had to zoom in, and it didn't turn out to be a great shot exactly. But the flamingos were out in the lake, which was good to see. And so I was happy I went down and made a visit to Hialeah, just to tuck that away as a track visit, as it were. But it was also, as I say, amazing that it's still in good shape, and I would think could be in the conversation. Again, there are some logistical problems, and there may be some other roadblocks that I'm unaware of. But in some of the articles about Florida racing have noted roadblocks at some of the other alternatives, including Hialeah. But I was amazed that it sat there in it as good shape as it was. Again, the track had grass growing, but that's just a track maintenance situation that you would think could get things back up and running there. But if you're down in the area, again, 20 minutes maybe from Gulfstream, if you're down in the area you've never visited, kind of worth. And it was just a wide open facility. You can go in and walk around, and it was interesting. Also interesting, again, we talked about the Tampa card earlier in the show, but don't forget, we did mention San Felipe today at Santa Anita with the return of Brandt. Won the first couple of starts of the career, Maiden Breaker, then the Del Mar Futurity, third behind Ted Noffey in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and now the Bob Baffert $3 million purchase comes back for the 3-year-old debut in the San Felipe. Looks to have a edge on this field, even money on the morning line. So we'll see how it plays out. 8th race today, Santa Anita, the San Felipe. They have a nice stakes card as well. Also on the card, the Beholder Mile, which will include Splendora, who won the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint at the end of the season for her last year. Came back early February and won the D. Wayne Lucas at Santa Anita for Bob Baffert. So Splendora in the Beholder Mile, intriguing. Frank Kilroe Mile, as the name suggests, a mile on the turf. Mi Bago shipping in for Mark Kassioff, a win in an optional claimer at Gulfstream is interesting. But I would think El Patante will be the horse that folks will take a look at off of a nice win last time in the Thunder Road for Dan Blacker. So nice group of turfers in the Kilroe Mile. And then the big cap, Santa Anita Handicap. This is not your father's, your grandfather's Santa Anita Handicap, unfortunately. There's a scratch-reduced field. Just a touch for Brad Cox. Ships in off a near miss in the Louisiana at Fairgrounds. That was the first start in quite a while, 6 months or so. Been working at Payson since that Fairgrounds effort, and now goes west to try the big cap. And again, looks to have the edge on a kind of a lackluster bunch. His short field and a lackluster bunch in the Santa Anita Handicap, but that will be today. Out on the West Coast as well, San Felipe, the 3-year-old race will be the 8th at Santa Anita. That will go off at 6:41. That's the scheduled post time, 3:41. Their time, 6:41 our time. You can look for the return of Brandt. Tampa Bay Derby is race 11 on the Tampa card. That's scheduled to go off at about 5:35. So keep all of those in mind. Do a little handicapping, jump in and play along. And speaking of playing along, we would love to have you play along with us if you're a patron at the Del Mar branch, because it's a fan appreciation day down at Del Mar, and you can play along with some food, some vouchers, some free PPs, and a contest to have some fun as well, giving us our chance to say thank you to you. Fan Appreciation Day, the Del Mar branch, that's this afternoon. And tomorrow, here at the Clubhouse Racebook, a little extra fun with the Exacta-Board promotion. So come on down to the Clubhouse Racebook tomorrow for that, 711 Central Avenue in Albany. All right, I'm going to wrap it up for Racing Across America on this Saturday morning. Thanks for tuning in. Always fun. Hopefully we gave you some good information for this afternoon, and we will be back this afternoon with plenty of good racing action, including that Tampa Bay card, which looks like a lot of fun. Going to jump into that, certainly with both feet. Hopefully you will too, and hopefully we all walk away cashing some tickets and having some extra fun. But we'll be having some thoughts and comments on that throughout the afternoon on OTB Live, which will kick off, I don't know, probably, well, we'll the two tracks I'm looking at today are Aqueduct and Tampa is going to kick things off first. They will get it underway at about 12:15. So, yeah, we'll be back in about an hour or so to start our thoughts on the afternoon on OTB Live. Otherwise, wrapping it up this morning on Racing Across America. Again, thanks for tuning in. Always appreciate it. We'll see you in about an hour or so for OTB Live. See you then. We'd like to thank Gulfstream Park for their sponsorship of this program and some of the other programming and events here at Capital OTB. Gulfstream Park's championship meet features great racing now through Florida Derby weekend at the end of March.
You're watching OTB TV, a service of Capital Offtrack Betting.